Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again for another episode. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have back with me Travis Howerton. Travis, first of all, welcome back to the pod.
Thanks for having us, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, why I always get thrilled when I talk to you is you and I are as professionally different in our backgrounds as we probably could be. I'm a lawyer by professional training, and you are not in a very different space. But the thing that I've always enjoyed about visiting with you and learning about RegScale is you bring a different perspective to compliance. And that's where we get true innovation in compliance. And that's why I wanted to visit with you again. So, with that long winded introduction, can you remind our audience about your professional background?
Sure. I spent about 2 decades in national security related work, where I retired as the first chief technology officer of the U.S. nuclear weapons program. Got to go out to Oak Ridge National Lab and run their IT cybersecurity division for a little bit. And then worked for Bechtel, leading digital transformation globally for them in a prior role there before finally going to RegScale. And everywhere I've been, I always found compliance to sort of be the equal and opposite force to digital transformation and wanting to do something about it. So that's how we got to here.
I absolutely love that because that's what you guys did. And hopefully, I know you guys are continuing, but I hope we can continue that moving forward. So let's go to RegScale and talk a little bit about the role the company plays in the broader context of digital transformation in compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. So we both want to be sort of a disruptor to the traditional ways of doing compliance. We'll get into more of that in compliance as code and different ways of thinking and doing things, but also being an enabler of digital transformation for highly regulated industries that struggle. So we want to be the solution that can help them go faster while absolutely maintaining adherence to all their regulatory compliance obligations, minimizing their risk posture, all the things that make it harder for them to move forward. We want to provide technology solutions that kind of give them the best of both worlds, speed to innovate while staying in the same low risk posture that they expect.
So, how does RegScale actually integrate the compliance frameworks that the federal government, state, or local authorities might put in place with the systems that actually do the work or do the business?
We started with digitizing lots of different regulations into the OSCAL standard, the Open Security Controls Assessment language from this, and moving from PDFs, Word documents, websites to structured data in that OSCAL format. And we use that as the basis for innovation going forward in RegScale. On top of that, since last time we talked, we've also signed a partnership with the Unified Compliance Framework. That takes the 50, 60 regulations we supported out of the box to well over 1,000. So now it's global scope, regulatory change management, a whole new breadth of capabilities, all digitized as compliance as code and regs. Same foundations for innovation, just massively wider breadth. A unique partnership we've established with that organization.
And what about not simply US regulations, but complexities literally of regulatory requirements literally across the world?
Yeah, and that's really what UCF opened the door for us. We were mostly US focused. Their breadth is international. So when I talk 1,000 plus regulations, it's not just US based frameworks you might think of, but it's also some international ones, Singapore, China, other areas that were closed to us. It was not an area we could afford to go into yet. But through this partner, we get the breadth of UCF and their leading abilities in regulatory change management are deeply and tightly integrated into RegScale in a very unique way. Controls and monitoring. So we're pretty excited about it. I know the UCF team is as well. And we think we can do some really unique things together through this partnership.
How do you envision the future of RegScale in the evolving compliance landscape?
Yeah, we see ourselves as a disruptor to the status quo of trying to help people get out of manual stare and compare exercises, heavily manual spreadsheet processes. And what we really want to make is compliance a free outcome of operational excellence in cybersecurity. So I mentioned my background's in national security. We're focused on the cyber compliance domain, but we just have this thesis that if you have a well instrumented security stack and you built these things well, because now we've digitized the regulations. Why can't the paperwork just be self-updating? Where a lot of that stuff just becomes a free outcome of running a great operational security program. That's what we want to help people get, where it's easy to get compliant, compliant, know that you're still compliant, and you can focus on the risk to the enterprise that's coming off your telemetry versus just trying to keep the paperwork in place for regulators, your board, internal audit, and all those.
Travis, we're recording this in September, and I think everyone in America knows we're in the middle of a presidential race.
Mhm.
But it strikes me, or I guess what I wanted to ask is, are the regulations that typically your industries that you have been in have to follow really either administration or even political party agnostic so that you know what the regs are, which direction they may be going, and it really doesn't matter who sits in the White House?
I think cybersecurity is going to be a board level issue, regardless of who's in the White House. I don't think that changes at all. Some of the flavor you will get in specific careabouts, one party's more into regulating than another. At the same time, one party cares deeply about national security, which increasingly is impacted by cyber. So I think no matter which way things go, cyber is going to continue to be an ongoing concern at the board level for basically every company and organization out there. Some of the flavor may change in administration, so specific priorities, insider threat versus supply chain versus privacy versus different careabouts they may have. But I don't see cyber compliance and the need to maintain it going anywhere anytime soon. It just may change a little bit around the edges.
Let me pick up on your point about the board oversight, and this is really a board level issue, at least in your opinion. As I recall, the first time I visited with you after you started with the reg scale, there was some awareness at the board, but you were having to educate as much as you were anything else. When you
Yeah.
have those conversations now, are we past the educational component and now it's how do we implement a full protection system or a compliance system?
I think most boards realize the threat. And you see every day a new major breach, how it impacts company stock prices, the legal liability they have, the reputation loss they have, the impact downstream on stocks and valuations and all those things where people realize this could be an existential threat to them. So certainly any company of any scale, I think, has some sophistication and awareness that cybersecurity is a big deal. Now, depending on the vertical you're in, that may be more of a big deal than others, depending on the types of data that you're managing, maintaining, other things. But I think there's a general awareness that cybersecurity is a must have, not a nice to have. At the same time, I haven't seen too much loosening of purse strings. Folks don't have unlimited budgets to go on cyber risk and compliance. So I think people understand it's important, but they're still having to engineer the best they can within the available resources they have. Because for most companies, cyber doesn't drive the business, it protects the business. Right. And so it's in that way, it is a cost center. So we've all got to look for ways we can get outcomes in the most cost effective way possible.
I started out in what's called anti-bribery, anti-corruption compliance, and compliance is typically seen as Dr. No from the land of no or
Yep.
the Office of Non-Business Development. With that introduction, what are some of the key challenges corporations face when implementing compliance solutions like RegScale? Is it literally Dr. No from the land of no, or is it something else?
Yeah. I don't, I've used a similar analogy. I always used to joke that cyber puts the no in innovation. But I think the reality is got to change the culture. Like we can say yes because of our cyber posture, because of our defense in depth. We can enable the business to do more things that drive the business forward versus being seen as a cost center that always says no, which inherently puts you in a negative place. The things we've kind of seen, or I'd say two main problems. One is just cultural. A lot of the folks in this world are closer to your skill set than mine, meaning they're not engineers, right? And so this idea of baking all this stuff in and shifting it left and doing everything as code, they don't necessarily see a future for themselves in there. So you get some cultural resistance. Also, you can get some regulatory resistance because it's different. They're used to seeing it one way. You're trying to do something different. You have to try to get the regulators on board. At the end of the day, it's a win for regulators because you get fresher evidence with better lineage and forensic ability to prove who did what when. So from an auditor perspective, it's better, but it's different. And so you've got to overcome that hurdle. And so a lot of these are more people problems than they are technology problems.
Let me pick up on one thing you said sort of at the start of that answer, which was having a robust compliance program allows you to move faster
Yep.
because you can document the process that you've gone through
Yeah.
utilizing the types of inputs that something like RegScale has. Let me see if I can rephrase that a couple of different ways.
Yep.
I tell people that effective compliance equates to more efficient business processes, creates to greater ROI. And as much as I like that one, my favorite is actually you don't have brakes on a car to slow down. You have
Yeah.
brakes on a car so you can drive fast. And that when I say things like that, people begin to pick their ears pick up. I go, okay, show me. Is that the kinds of conversations you can have when you're sitting across with a lawyer like me explaining all that?
Yeah, and so that's a great analogy as to one I normally use is the braking system because speed without brakes is death. Brakes, what you want to have, it's the safety systems in place that allow you to do things at those speed. It's no different in business. You want to move into new markets, you want to do new things, but what you need are all the protections in place that allow you to do them safely. So it's sort of baking security in, having more streamlined, better integrated, shifted left processes where security is just a natural byproduct of doing the right thing. So now the business can innovate in a secure way and you can get your arms around it better. And so it creates that win you really want. Because for too long, security's been a win lose with the business. You have great security, or the business can be happy, but the two were mutually exclusive for a long time. I don't think that's the case anymore. The rise of cloud technologies, the ability to move things to software based architectures, there's the ability to give more freedom to the business to do the things they need to do without sacrificing your security postures. I think you can create a lot more win scenarios than maybe were historically possible.
You said a phrase very early on in this podcast, and I almost just cringe. It wasn't a phrase, it was a word spreadsheets.
Yep.
I have one friend who says Excel is evil. And so I really wanted to ask, how do you get best practices into an organization that may still be using SharePoint, that's certainly using spreadsheets to move
Yep.
to a more automated compliance process?
Yeah. What I kind of tell people is you want to start with a more homogenous infrastructure. And so sometimes it's really hard to bring the past into your future, but everything that's old dies eventually. Right. And so as you replace things, as you bring in new things, have a well architected solution. When you're building apps, have a secure CI/CD pipeline. When you're deploying them, have a secure cloud based runtime that's well instrumented, well secured. So that as over time, as you move things in, the security's all baked in. You get a chance to kind of start over where everything's baked in versus bolted on. So you can let the old stuff die, bring the new stuff in. And over time, you will get to where you want to be without having this huge bubble of cost because naturally you have to refresh technologies and solution infrastructure over time. So it gives you a way to sort of slowly phase it in. The key is to have a good strategy to look for where you're having pain points and get some quick wins. So where can we automate away some pain and make some of those spreadsheets stop? And again, really just trying to shift it left. The earlier you can bake it in, the cheaper it is to fix and the more reliable it's going to be downstream. And so helping people shift those security processes and just bake them into everything is really the best practice that matters the most.
One of the things that I have wondered about in terms of data security and even data breaches is not that a breach could occur or would occur, but if it does occur, is it simply a matter of the bad guys extracting data, or could the bad guys actually get in and change the data?
You have
So,
a three-legged stool of solder: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We spend most of our time in the analyst world worried about confidentiality. What's our IP or trade secrets or most sensitive information, and how do we keep from having it stolen? We worried about it can actually be one of the least bad ones, depending on what industry you're in. Like the one that scares me the most is actually integrity issues. So if you think about hospitals, healthcare data, the grid, integrity problems can go from cyber world to physical world and make things explode on a factory floor or on a grid. You could go in and change people's medical records, what you're allergic to, and the type of blood you have, create mass casualty events, terrorists. Not being able to trust the integrity of your data, since we are so dependent on our data and our systems, these large main critical infrastructure sectors of our economy, is the one that keeps me up at night. The confidentiality one's terrible. Nobody wants to lose their IP, but it's not the same as a mass casualty event or a terrorist act or weaponizing cyber, which can happen in the integrity.
What KPI should an organization use to track or even measure the effectiveness of a automation or automated compliance solution?
Yeah, one of them's just employee satisfaction. Nobody wants to work in those mega spreadsheets for tons of time. Nobody wants to be harassing people on Slack and Teams and email, like, where's the evidence for this? Chase down this screenshot. It's annoying. It's annoying for the person who has to do it. And it's annoying to the person who's getting annoyed by it. Right. And it's that whole culture of how it works. We can just create a more pleasant work environment. The other one that was always big to me is this is the thing that gets you fired as a CISO. A bad audit surprise or a bad breach where you trick yourself into thinking we're good because the paper says we're good. And at one point in time, you probably were, you get drift, things change. And what always kept me up at night was like the unknown unknown. What am I feeling really good about that I shouldn't be feeling good about now? Getting more automation and telemetry helps eliminate those things. And then the key metric for me is not everything can be automated. And I say that as an engineer who wants to automate everything. As a lazy engineer, you want to take everything manual and make it completely automated. That's just not real. And I don't know anybody who wants computers making their strategic risk decisions for their company. But everybody I know is comfortable with the computers giving them better data so the human can make those risk based decisions. Right. So looking at what level of assurance do you have in your control sets? Like how automated are they? And what's the coverage, right? Are some key metrics because you got to start somewhere. And even if you can only get to 20% coverage in year one, that's better than where you were at zero, right? So a lot of security is just being better than you were yesterday. And over time, it will accrue to a point where you can be in a really healthy, secure sort of posture over time.
I used to ask people where they thought the industry might be in 2025, but now I have to ask 2030, but then I get to add mid-century. As we move towards mid-century, isn't that a scary thought? Where do you think the industry is going to be in 2030 or beyond?
And what I thought to people, a lot of the compliance world runs on GRC tools and spreadsheets, governance, risk, and compliance tools. And what I ask people is those weren't built for a static client server work with manual processes where you can kind of get your arms around. But when you think of this future world, it's not that anymore. It's cloud native. Things are ephemeral. They spin up and down on demand. So you don't necessarily even know what's right. And then the scope keeps climbing up, whether it's AI regulations that are coming, DORA, business resilience stuff out of Europe, privacy, CMMC and the DoD. You go on and on. It's what I call the cyber Oprah effect, where every day there's a new framework they're giving out, and all of us are having to react to that based off the markets that we're in. And then Moore's law is continuing unabated, which is, if you think it's going too fast now, it'll never be this slow again. And so the question I ask people is who's ready in their current program to hit a moving target at twice the scope at 4 to 8 times the speed? You're not going to be able to do that with your current budget and spreadsheets and GRC tools. It's just never going to work. So this is going to happen. So what I tell people is the first step, like a real plan is acknowledging the truth. The truth is this is going to happen. And so having a good plan of how you're going to deal with it and a strategy and figuring out where you're going to start and just get on the journey. And some people are going to be able to move faster than others, but the ones that survive this disruption will be the ones who come and have a plan, embrace it and take advantage of it versus the ostrich mentality of, I'm just going to keep doing it the way I've always done it. It's just not going to work.
We've both been in our respective fields for 15 to 20 years. What would you say to the college student who's an engineer, perhaps with a background like yourself, about going into compliance? Or what would you say to the lawyer or someone in law school about coming over to work in a more automated, to help develop a more automated tool? Is that something that you think is available to people coming into our field now?
There's always going to be a place for compliance. And certainly on the legal regulatory side, there'll always be careers there. You go more to my background and pedigree on the engineering side, it's more how do you make compliance and outcome a good security so you can focus on risk? Because compliance is a spectrum in many cases. Like it's not black and white. There's degrees in which you can be compliant, there's degrees in which you can be locked down. And you're always trying to make these decisions about what's best for the business, what can we afford, what's the risk, what's the best decision we can make given the constraints that we have. It's a really fun intellectual exercise. It requires a lot of cross domain knowledge of multiple different things. It's creative problem solving. It's all the fun things that you want to do as an engineer or as a business professional. When people just hear the compliance word, it's like the thing that shuts down conversation in the bar. Just if you kind of lead with that, like you kind of miss the purpose of what compliance is trying to do. Because my view of compliance is that it's a good thing. That people who work in compliance are unsung heroes because we all want more secure systems. We all want clean air. We all want clean water. Compliance is the rules of the road that try to guarantee those outcomes for you. So they're a good thing. The bad thing about compliance is the unintended consequences of it and the cost and the impact to innovation and other things. If you're able to sit in the middle of those two things and solve them, you are insanely valuable to the company you work for. So I think it's an exciting field if you frame it right and just put the right lens on it.
I'm going to ask this as sort of our final question or next to last question because I really want, if there's anyone who is hesitant to embrace automation, I want you to explain to them why they need to get over that hesitancy. So, what do you tell the person who, or the compliance professional who is reluctant for whatever reason to embrace automation?
Yeah. I think you just got to embrace the truth. The best plans start with the truth. And the truth is that software is eating the world. Like you can see it everywhere. If it's not governed by some law of physics that says it's not possible, at some point software is going to be doing it. You can look at the Netflix versus Blockbuster example and many others of industries completely disrupted by technology. That pace of change is accelerating. Like it used to be if you got to the top 10 companies list, like you had a 50-year run, now you got like a secure run and it just keeps compressing because technology is just kind of eating everything. So you can either be one of the people that's riding the wave, meaning you're making money off this or growing in your career, or you could be one of the people who gets disrupted and unemployed by this. And that's just the nature of what's going to happen in many different verticals and many different industries over time. So I'd always rather be part of the solution than part of the problem. And so if you find yourself saying the way we've always done it is fine, that's probably not true as some function of time. It's just a matter of time of when it happens.
Travis Day, we are now at the end of our time, but before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted to either connect with yourself or find out more information on RegScale, what might be the best way for them to do or the best places for them to go?
Yeah. So you can always find us at www.regscale.com. We got the contact us page. You can reach out anytime to learn more about RegScale, connect with me, connect with any of the brilliant people on our team. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on social media. So you can reach out to us that way or just drop me an email at thowerton@regscale.com and I'd be happy to get back to you. But if you're passionate about sort of automating the risk and compliance world, compliance is code, and some of the things that Tom and I have been talking about today, we'd love to continue the conversation with you online and see where it goes.
Travis, thank you again for taking the time to visit with me, and I greatly hope we can continue our conversation.
Thanks for having us, Tom. It's an honor.